I want to bring this back to what does it take for us in living with epilepsy, for a person or for a family member, because when we talk about management, we're usually talking about the medical management or the surgical management. But there's a whole field of self-management and self-care, which is like, what is it? It's that process. It's those steps, everything you need to do to run your life with epilepsy, whether it's managing your seizures, your treatments, your living situation, your safety. And I think it's really important that we realize that the person's job with epilepsy, their family's job, is bigger than just when you go to the doctor's office. That's only kind of one part of your life. And this is the National Health Service, I think, in UK, which takes this concept really well. I love their definition of it because they say this kind of self-management, self-care. It's part of your daily living. And it's not just the person with epilepsy. They use the term carers to mean, everyone that's involved in your care, which in this case it's those around you, your family members, and that it happens in your homes, in your neighborhoods, in your community. It's not just a medical thing in hospitals. So I think those are real important concepts to think about. And if you just think about these kind of two topics, what's interesting to me on this is that we can go and hear information or think we're learning knowledge, but the real issue and the message is now what do you do with it? And I think on the self-care side, they say people need skills training. How do you take that information to make it work for you? They need tools and monitoring device. You can't do it just on your own, and if you're having memory troubles or for whatever is going on with you got to figure a way on how do I track this stuff over time? And what are the kinds of supports that I need? So I'm making some healthy lifestyle choices. So this kind of broadens that whole scope of what we need to manage it. There's a whole host of skills we all need, and the purpose isn't to address all of that. I'm highlighting a few for us today that we heard over and over again, the need to kind of like collect data. I mean, we heard about that over these past few days, talking about seizure prediction, seizure monitoring, what the person might remember about how many seizures they have or what kind they are might be very different than what the EEG says we're having. So we're not always know, or if we know what happens, if we don't write it down, we might not remember it by the time we go into the doctor's office, So that whole issue of how to observe and how to record is so critical for everybody. And it's important to hear families' observations and recordings separate from the person with epilepsy because people see it differently. We've heard different views all today. And then we need to think about how to prepare and manage. If we can have alerting devices, if we can have responding devices, if we have a seizure alert dog, those are all great too, but how do we also manage the medicines? So there are all those other skills that all of us need to learn. So when you think about it, I talk about observing or recording. It's not just seizures. It's your mood. It's your memory. It's their side effect, as you heard. It's how bad is injury for you or not. Or are my other medical problems occurring or recurring and things like that. And on that right-hand side, I ask myself, well, why is this important? Because I'm a nurse and I work people all the time, and, I'm always asking to write things down, bring them in, and people forget to write them down and bring them in. And you stop and say, well, why do I need to do it? Well, think about it. You need to know what's happening. You need to know what everyone else observes if they're going to be able to prescribe the right treatments for you, or if you're going to think about whether or not surgery or device is appropriate for you. It really makes a difference in terms of what those observations are. We all need to remember it. It's hard I never remember what I want to ask when I get into the doctor's office. And then we needed to plan and make decisions. I think earlier, people talked about making decisions, for surgery. It is the person's choice who's going through it, but you need data to make those decisions. So in thinking about that, I just wanted to share, I think Dr. Fisher raised this earlier, and about a device really kind of communicating and helping to track things for you. We have Patients Like Me has a diary out there. Seizure Tracker has a diary. I know many people who've created their own. This is one on Epilepsy Therapy Project, the My Epilepsy Diary, and I'm not hitting this button, but I think somebody else is. My hands are up here. Right? Anyway, what you can do is not only Oh, gee. You move it back there, David. Anyway. But one can record your whole history. So I think someone raised that earlier. You know, it's great to be thinking about the whole person, but you've got to have the information about your whole person there. So how can we record that information so that our family, our caretakers, our doctors, our nurses know about it? And how can I track medicines, keep track of side effects, keep track of my menstrual period if it's associated in that regard? So you can track the different things in the severity using this kind of a diary, as well as the different medicines, and you can create reminders for yourself. So if you tend to forget when you're supposed to take them, you can have reminders sent to your phone to tell you by text or by whichever way you want on what you need to be able to do. And here it's still moving, so I'm not touching. But you can have it for iPhones, Googles, and all that. But I think I think this is just circulating. Anyway, but 2 points I want to bring out about this that I think is critical for us when we're thinking about how can we use technology to help us is you can create reports of it. So before you go into your doctor's office, you can print out a report and take it with you. And the other option is you can share your diary. So if you so choose, or a parent could create a diary with their, say, daughter, you know, and their daughter, if their daughter chooses, let's say she's a teenager, to have mom or dad enter things in too, they could share it with them. Everybody could enter in their observations. And if you so choose, you can, and your physician chooses, or your nurse, I'm a nurse, that you can share that data with your healthcare professional so they can be able to access it. So when you're at the visit, you can be all looking at some of the same information. So that's just one kind of tip that I think we heard a lot about a technology on devices and what we can do in the brain, and Dr. Fisher showed us some great pictures on it. But here's some stuff that we can just use right now, you know, that I think, you know, there's different roles for everybody on what works, but it's things really worth looking at. Another skill we all need to think about is communicating. And when you communicate it, it's talking about it yourself, it's disclosing the way everybody has today, and it's kind of giving and receiving of support. And so I think about that in terms of the host of kinds of what's available now. And I'm shortening this because I want everyone to get dessert. But Trish Barnes was here talking earlier. Trish, are you... There she is. So, you know, can you step up to the mic for a second? One of the things we talked about was that when her son, she was dealing with it, you know, what wasn't there for her? Because right now, if you've got a question, you can go on in the middle of the night when you think of that question, and you can Google it, or you can go onto a chat room or into a community, post a question, and the next you might have a real time get some answers, or the next day get some responses from all over the world. And you can create these networks with parents, with other people like yourself. But 10 years ago, what do we have now that you think could have been helpful for you? I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, when I first found epilepsy.com and went on, I was just completely blown away. I mean, you know, I hadn't looked at anything, as I said, forever. And when I saw what was available, I just was immediately, you know, totally amazed and thrilled because, you know, just start with the diary. You know, you know how it is. I mean, I don't know how it is to be the epileptic person, the person with the seizure, but I know how it is to be the mother and to try to, you have so many things going on and you're trying to do so many things and control so many things that you, and it all seems to sort of blend in. So if it could have ever been written down, I think it would have given such a more accurate picture. You brought up, you know, the seizure that comes up in the middle of the night. The idea that I could get in a chat room and connect with somebody else in the world that was awake that would talk to me about what was happening. Yes, you guys won't even believe this, but yesterday was the first time in my whole life I ever talked to another mother who had a child with epilepsy. Yeah. I'm not kidding. And that kind of isolation was so debilitating and so lonely. And so, you know, it limited me what I could do because you can't be everything, you know. Like I'm so amazed, like at Warren, you know, that you know, you're able to directly impact your daughter's life through your work in that field. But I was a teacher, You know, what do I know about epilepsy, you know? So, I mean, those kinds of things I think are just phenomenal. And, you know, so I think what I came to realize, though, at this conference is that apparently, though, is that maybe people aren't utilizing that site like that they could be utilizing that site, you know, or maybe they don't know about it. And so again, that's my whole you know, what I'm interested in doing is trying to bring awareness again in just a very general sense, just and so much work has been done that's pretty amazing. But so that's what I would say. I think, you know, just the ability to find another mother to talk to. Oh, and the other thing I was going to say is, I think Kevin's life would have been so much better if he had been able to connect with another guy his age with seizures. God, I think that would have been just like so great. So,
thank you, Trish. You know, you think about all the difference that we've made in technology and how we connect with people in the past 10 years, and I can just imagine, you know, what it's going to be like in the next few years even. I'm not even going to go out 5 years and guess. I'm thinking a couple of years. But I also think it's also important to realize the reach of individuals and not just, you know, larger organizations. Well, I'm going to say organizations. I'm going to... let me just switch. I get off track. Hold on. It's a long day. We have Samantha here, and I had raised her earlier. You know, I meet with people online all the time, and it's great to hear what's going on with people. Yet at the same time, what happens is what's so exciting is when one person can turn around and help another person, and yet turn around and then take it to try to raise awareness and do it in another way without the resources of anyone behind you. So, Samantha, just stand up and just tell a little bit about what you've done.
So, well, I started off as...
Turn and speak to everyone that way. Thanks.
Started off as a mentor at epilepsy.com. So I worked in the live chat, and that really gave me a voice. Like, that was really awesome, you know, like, I suddenly had a voice, tons of people to talk to. Then that kind of inspired me, and I started a Facebook page that e-fact a day. So it had an epilepsy fact for each day. Then that wasn't enough, so I started a site, a Facebook page, Epilepsy Illuminators, and a friend and I did a video called Faces of Epilepsy Project. We asked people for their pictures and one positive thing they've accomplished. And we got about 25 pictures, and it's on YouTube, so you can find it there. But it's been a really awesome experience. I've met a lot of really great people and seen a lot of very sad things. You know, of course, in the epilepsy community, people pass away, you know, and that's sad. And it's a reality, and you learn a lot. So that is my experience through social media.
Thank you. So I think one of the things that highlights, which all of you probably have similar experiences to, is the real positive benefits, you know, of connecting and then just reaching out and having an idea and taking it a step further. But then the downsides. You make great friendships with people all over the world, yet you might not see them in person, or maybe you lose touch, or maybe something tragic happens to them. And so there's that, we actually were talking about this earlier with someone, is that, you know, sometimes we all need grief counselors to kind of help us deal with stuff in the virtual world, just like we do in the real world, because our reach and our connections are so far, but you can't touch them and look at them and deal with them the same way. So there are a lot of pros and cons with that. A couple other skills and things that I want people to think about as we're wrapping up today is you've heard a lot, making your voices heard, advocating, participating, making a difference. And there's so many ways that each and every one of us can do that. The Epilepsy Foundation hosts, you know, a great website, lots of great stuff right on the website, but I want to draw your attention to a couple things. Who's here from EF Northern California still? Okay, what's your date of your epilepsy stroll?
But for anyone who needs information about the Epilepsy Foundation of Northern California, you can call 1-800-632-3532, and the San Francisco number is 677-4011.
4011. So, I mean, I think that's kind of critical that you can connect in your own community and do that. You've got aspirations more than that, then please think about the National Epilepsy Walk in Washington, D.C., and all the epilepsy organizations really come together with that, and it's around the time of the Public Policy Institute, where people can match up, with healthcare professionals, take your own doctor or nurse with you, and actually be visiting your congressman, or woman, and be making your voices heard that way, right? And then, as you saw, we all do this. No one does it alone. We all have to do it together. And these are just, I'm sure if I've left someone out, I'm sorry. But, these are some of the really epilepsy resources that are so important for everybody in the field. And you saw some of them here today. You can find all of them online, many of them having their own e-communities or ways that you can access help for it. So I really encourage you to kind of connect also with all of these organizations, because we're all in it together and trying to work hard to make epilepsy not a problem.